You can start.
Okay.
It's like a mute button on the computer, doesn't it? It's like you would think.
Thank you all for joining. This is the Wednesday, January 14th, 2026 meeting of the Tenant Landlord Commission. This meeting is being recorded for the public. And first item on the agenda is public comment. Is there anyone on the call for public comment? No one in the room, hearing none. Moving forward to our first agenda item, which is November meeting minutes approval. Oh.
I sent them out, but I forgot to print them out.
Oh,
I read them. No, I'm good.
I read them.
Small thing.
Yeah.
There's just one misspelling of my name, but just fine. I don't think it's like a
No.
Landford. I think people often put a extra letter between the N and the F.
Landford.
It was right two other times. It was right a majority of the time. There was just one. But otherwise,
the issue when we're doing things like for the senator of Langford.
Yeah,
It's like the
the K, a G, a
Yeah.
D, people do it all the time. But otherwise, they look good, and I motion to approve.
Okay, the motion has been moved with the one correction.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? All those opposed? Minutes are approved. Okay, we now have Russell from DHS, right?
No, from CPHD.
CPHD. Okay, there's so many acronyms. Russell, the floor is yours. We're here to discuss your affordable housing master plan.
Thank you. And Hector, thank you for pulling that up and sharing that. So it's been 10 years in the fall since the board adopted the Affordable Housing Master Plan, which is an element of the comprehensive plan. We moved away from doing annual reports on the Affordable Housing Master Plan, which used to be kind of printed reports, PDF format that it kind of old school and moved to a dashboard system. But given that this is 10 years, we pulled together another report that takes a comprehensive look at kind of the cumulative impact of our housing efforts over those 10 years and towards achieving the goals in the plan, which are to have an adequate supply of affordable housing for the community's needs, to enable access to that housing for various segments of the population, needing access to that, support for access, and supporting a sustainable community. Next slide, Hector. Thank you. So there's a lot of documents that float around, and so the report has a little kind of guide that's broken up into 2 pages here, but it's 1 page of the report. As I mentioned, the Affordable Housing Master Plan is an element of the comprehensive plan, which is really what guides the county's development. It's the county's main policy document. There's 12 elements to that, so a lot of people, you may have heard of the transportation plan, the general land use plan. There's the water and sewer plan. There's a host of plans, 12 plans in total. The Affordable Housing Master Plan was the 11th plan. And associated with the plan, so really we have kind of a 3-pillar kind of system to our housing efforts, which is we have our data-informed policy, we have implementation, and we have measurement. So first, the data-informed policy, the master plan itself is informed by a housing needs analysis, and wanted to call your attention to every 5 years, we update that needs analysis with new data drawn heavily from the American Community Survey, from the Census Bureau. We work with George Mason University and their Center for Regional Analysis to put that together. And so a new housing needs analysis, or a refreshed one, was done in October. And I have one slide to just tease out a little information, make you familiar with that. But that really informs both the plan, the policy document, and the implementation. So we have an implementation framework. The plan tells us what we want to achieve. So it identifies goals, objectives, and policies. The implementation framework is a companion document, and that was last updated in 2022. And that really details the specific actions that the county intends to take in order to achieve those plans. So how we're going to achieve the policies that are laid out in the Affordable Housing Master Plan. So along with that, we have a measuring component. So there is a measuring and reporting plan as well that lays out what specific pieces of data we're going to look at for each of the various policies within the plan. Next slide, Hector. Thank you. And so on the implementation side, that really flows to the work plans for the county, our various departments, the Department of Human Services, Community Planning, Housing and Development, also the Continuum of Care, which implements homeless services, and various partner organizations that we work with. And we, of course, have this Housing Arlington initiative, which was another further effort to implement the master plan. On the measurement side, we've got a few pieces as well. So while we don't do an annual report like a written report, we do still have an indicators report. The report's out on 61 indicators, as well as a whole bunch of other information. So if you're looking for data, that's a good place to go. A dashboard, which is a more user-friendly version, accesses a lot of the information that's in the indicators report. Indicators report being basically an Excel-based format that has longitudinal data over 10 years. Your eyes gloss over kind of when you see it. So we try to make that a little bit more user-friendly through the dashboard. And then lastly, what we're going to talk about tonight is 10-year report, which draws on all that data and information and looks at the results that we've had over the last 10 years. Next slide, Hector. So I did mention the housing needs analysis, and I'm only going to show you one slide from this. Really, kind of the heart of the housing needs analysis is looking at, who's cost burdened in the county, and see that owners, there's a scant, 17% of owners are cost burdened, which is kind of pales in comparison to the amount of cost burdened renters. And this looks at both cost burden and severely cost burden. Cost burden, the threshold for that is households paying more than 30% of their income towards their rent. Severely cost burdened, in the yellow or gold there, are households paying more than 50% of their income towards rent. And so we see that certain segments of the population, looking at the renter population, have much higher cost burden rates, and particularly most of that disparity is in the severely cost burden. So that's kind of concerning that it's not just cost burden, that where we're seeing the disparity is largely on that gold side, with varying from all renters being 18% cost burden to Black or African American renters being 28% cost burden, Hispanic 26%, persons with disabilities 35% severely cost burdened, older households above 70, 32%, and then of course lower income households under 60% AMI, 57% being severely cost burdened, paying over 50% of their monthly income towards rent. That's a lot of households with a lot of strain. So I encourage you to look at the report. There's a lot of other information in there, but we're here to talk about the 10-year report. But I would be remiss if I didn't draw your attention to that. Next slide, Hector. So the Affordable Housing Master Plan, as I said earlier, it really is organized in three goals. The first one being supply. And so looking at our production over the last 10 years, we've gone from 7,300 units to close to 12,000 units. So that's an increase of 4,614 units. Really, that's 63% in 10 years. We've increased our affordable housing stock. And so I think that's, there's been a lot of effort and resources that have gone to that, and it's paying off.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How many I assume these are almost all apartments.
They're all apartments.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
how many apartments are there in Arlington County when this statistic was put together, so we can see what the percentage of that 11,000 is.
We can come back to that.
Okay,
I'll take a moment and show you the dashboard and we can look at that and we can kind of do the mental math there. But it's a very good question. Next slide, Hector. The master plan itself has kind of one numeric target. The plan itself doesn't, it has more broad policy statements and broad goals, but for supply, we wanted to match the supply of affordable housing, rental housing under 60% of the area median income to the need in the community. So this is the area that the market isn't producing housing for, that the county needs to attend to. And as you can see, the graph isn't perfect because it's 5-year segments and then the last one is 15 years. So that actually would kind of be more in line with, you know, it's an infographic. So they whatever. But we're really well on our way towards hitting that 17.7. If you see, we started in 2015 at 9.3% of the housing, and that's all housing in the county. So single family, everything in the county, all housing. 9.3 was affordable rentals, affordable to households with incomes up to 60% of the area median income. And we've made substantial progress. I think going from 9.3 to 12.8 in a period of 10 years is very good. If we continue on that trajectory, we would hit that 17.7. And obviously the population changes, and that's why we periodically do the needs assessment. And the needs assessment has shown that our target is still pretty much in line within a margin of error of the data that we have on households at various income levels. Next slide. So an interesting companion, we also monitor market rate affordability, and that's unrestricted housing in the community. In part of that target, it's measuring both our committed affordable and market rate affordable housing. And so, as you saw on the first slide, we increased our supply of committed affordable by over 4,000 units in the last 10 years. But we've also seen an increase in market rate affordable housing at 60% AMI and at 80%. And this was something, especially at the 60% AMI, at the time the master plan was approved, there was a pretty clear trend line that we were going to see all those units disappear. And we've seen a resurgence of them. They've come back. And I think there's two primary reasons for that. One is that the area median income has risen faster than inflation. Doesn't mean that everybody's income has risen faster than inflation, but the median income, which is the metric that's used, rose faster. So that, and it rose faster than increases in apartment rents, meaning more rents, more apartment units fell back under the 60% threshold. The other reason, I think, is that Arlington over the last 10 years has seen quite a lot of development, most obviously affordable housing development, but also market rate, and typically the market rates at their Class A apartments at the top of the market. But that supply helps to alleviate pressure at the bottom as well. And so I think we've seen less increases than we would have seen otherwise if there hadn't been that development taking place. Next slide. So our second, oh, I didn't realize this was in there. Yeah, so this is a good news story. We've increased our deeply affordable units affordable to households with 30% of the area median income. We only had 5 committed affordable units that were affordable at that level in 2015. So woefully inadequate for the need. About half of the need of households under 60% is for extremely low income households. And we've increased that up to 164. Still a long way to go, but really kind of a quantum move considering where we were in 2015. And really it's been in the last 5 years that we've seen a lot more action and effort towards achieving those 30% units in our. Next. So second goal has to do with access. even if we have affordable housing, it doesn't mean that everybody can afford to live in the affordable housing. We do have direct rental assistance programs that help to bridge that gap. And that's, there's basically three main programs that do that: the housing grant program, the housing choice voucher program, which is a federal program, Section 8, and rapid rehousing and permanent supportive housing program. So the combination of those, we've seen an increase in households served by those programs by an increase of 33% since 2015. So now serving about 4,000 households. Next, which are administered by the Department of Human Services, DHS. Eviction prevention, also administered through DHS. We saw a dramatic increase with COVID, households seeking eviction prevention assistance. It really popped up in 2020 to 1,500 households and has remained high. So in 2025, we assisted 1,600 households with eviction prevention. It's an area of great need. It really an essential tool, I think, in helping keep our homeless numbers down. Even though they've been going up, they'd be much worse were it not for the eviction prevention assistance. Next slide. Okay. In permanent supportive housing, there's a commitment of the county. When we do produce new committed affordable housing, we generally seek to have 10% of the units set aside as permanent supportive housing, which is an important tool for the continuum of care and providing housing for the most vulnerable of our residents. And the number of permanent supportive housing that's increased by over 57%, right on the slide there. Obviously, there's going to be some challenges with HUD currently seems to be hostile towards permanent supportive housing as a means of addressing homelessness, even though evidence has shown it to be extremely effective. And we have a retention rate of over 90% of persons in permanent supportive housing that remain in their housing. So it's keeping people out of homelessness. Very important. Next, and then our third last goal, sustainability. All of committed affordable housing that's been constructed over the last 10 years has been Earthcraft certified. It's akin to LEED certified, but there's some nuance and differences, but it's really the Virginia housing they go towards that for their tax credit. So it's kind of the standard for most affordable housing. All of the units built and developed within the last 10 years have been accessible to transit within a half mile of the county's primary and premium transit networks. Next. And then it doesn't help much if we build affordable housing and it's not around for the long haul. So we've been trying to get longer commitments of affordability when we build housing. And so this represents all our housing. In 2016, we didn't have 2015 data because we just started measuring in 2016. The average length of affordability for a committed affordable unit was 36 years or across the entire portfolio. It's now 51 years. So it's really increased. Obviously, the acquisition of Barcroft with a 99-year commitment, and that's 1,300 units, helped to boost that number up as well as some others. But generally, we're getting, at least 60, sometimes 75 years. 99 seems to be now a number that's in place. So we're going to have affordable housing resources for a long time in the community, but it's going to take resources to maintain and keep those. Obviously, we don't want those properties falling into disrepair and poor maintenance. So there will be ongoing challenges with that, I'm sure. Next slide. And I think that's our. Oh God, this is the extended play version. being good stewards of our resources is another component of financial sustainability. We leverage when we invest in affordable housing through our Affordable Housing Investment Fund. We typically get $4 for every dollar we invest into that project. So we're not the only money in there. There's private financing, there's other equity that comes into play. It's it's very, very efficient. So our funds. Next slide. And the Affordable Housing Investment Fund is an investment fund. We do get repaid on those loans, and I think it's important to highlight. So we got, we dispersed $366 million over 10 years, and we've received back $73 million in loan payments. And those loan payments get turned into new projects. So important component of the fund. Next. And then this was an old favorite, apparently from when we did the master plan, but it shows the various sources that go into a typical AHIF dollar. General fund accounts for 44 cents of that, but development contributions, those are from site plans when they have their affordable dwelling unit requirements. They typically choose to pay cash, but that cash is turned around and turned into projects that benefit residents. And then another 24 cents from those loan repayments. The recordation fees is a little sliver, but not, it adds up over time. And then federal funds is just a smidgen. Not we need this. We don't want those to go away, but they're really we're largely locally funded. And I think that's the last slide. So I do have more to talk about. And I'll share my screen with you in a second so we can actually look at the dashboard. But if there's any other questions regarding the report.
Sure, I had one regarding, I guess the one that was like 5.5 and it was jumping. And in the first segment, it only went up, I think, 23%, and it jumped 3%. What was the cause of that 3%? 3 and change percent hike? Is it ordinance changes, or it was just developers in the pipeline and it finally came about in 2020?
Yeah, I think it was a combination of things. I think that the area median income between 2020 and 2025 really changed a lot, and that captured more of those market rate units. And there was just a lot more development. I think with Crystal Houses, we saw larger developments, and that really upped those numbers as well. What didn't change those numbers, interestingly, is the acquisition of Barcroft, because Barcroft was market rate affordable before it became a committed affordable. So those 1,300 units were in that number either way. So that didn't change, didn't move the dial on that metric. But if we had lost those, that would have been a severe hit and impact on the county.
Any other questions from commissioners before we go to the dashboard?
That's great.
Okay, so see, I'm going to talk about rent, but I'll do a quick detour through the dashboard and send my let's see, share. See ourselves there. Okay. All right. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with the affordable housing dashboard.
I love this thing and I wish more people knew about it. I use it all the time when I negotiate with my landlords. I'm not kidding. I send it to everyone I know.
That's a good skill.
Yeah.
And how do you use it in negotiating with your landlords? Just out of curiosity.
I'll say, look, this is where I live and this is what the market rate is for my area, for the Columbia Pike corridor. And you want to charge me more than that. And I don't think that's fair. And it's worked every year.
Great.
I love it.
So, Yeah, and so there's various components to the dashboard, and it's loading and it's slow today. There's a separate, we'll get into the rental housing dashboard in a second. This is just the general affordable housing dashboard, which you can access the rental dashboard through this.
Oh, that's what I meant. I was
It-
talking about the rental value.
Quite all right. But there was a question about, there's close to 12,000 affordable units, and how much is that relative to the total number of apartments? So this breaks it into the apartments. This is the entire housing supply in the county. So it's about 49,000 elevator apartments and then 15,000 garden apartments. So that's 64,000 apartments. And so if we have 12,000 that are committed affordable, let's see, 12,000 divided by 64.
12, 13%.
Yeah, so about 18, close to 19%. Yeah. So does that answer your question?
It does. Does the county or does anybody think about it as a percentage, you know, of the total number of apartments? Like, is there, we want to have 25% or because when you say 18%, take aside
Yeah.
all of the emotional side of affordability, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's a really, really good number. I know it doesn't feel like it's enough to serve the community, but
Yeah, well, we in the past, I think we used to look at that as a metric, but we changed our metric to that housing under 60%. That's as part of the total housing stock, so including condos, including single family, including everything. And so that's what this other one, and this has kind of the historic, and you can see, and this shows the breakdown between how much of that is committed affordable housing. And you'll notice a difference between the 12,000 stated early. That's because we have a number of committed affordable units that are at 80% AMI, so they would not be counted in this metric. Only the 60% and below. And then how much of that is market rate housing? So those two kind of combine
And this graphic, are those 80% AMI lumped into the market rate affordable?
No,
No,
only the 60% AMI market rate affordable. We look at, both 60 and 80% market rate affordable, but we only capture the 60% because that's our, what's in bold there is what's in the master plan as far as what the target is. Which is, it doesn't roll off the tongue.
So going back to, I guess, the one that was showing the different types of units.
Yeah.
Is the county looking more towards, because I know often in listening sessions, we hear that they want ownership. They want a route to ownership.
Yeah.
Of the unit or the property that they're on. So is there future incentives to get us to building more townhouses or building more condo, or what's the other one? It's not condo. Co-ops.
Which is
Yeah,
condos and co-ops.
Yeah, I know.
It's a slightly different flavor of the same
Yes.
thing. It's difficult. And we'll look at the rent information, and I think that points the way. It raises questions for me. It's like if we see declining rents and sustained declining rents, particularly in the higher Class A apartments, might we see conversions to condominiums? And if it happens at that level, that's not so bad because it doesn't displace lower income folks who have less options, higher income folks who might even be able to buy condominiums, or certainly there's an abundance of apartments in that segment. Condo conversions largely they stopped in 2005. After 2005, no more condo conversions. The county saw a massive wave of condo conversions in the 70s, the 80s, into the 90s, and then into the 2000s. But that's all gone away. Getting new construction of condos is very hard. We've seen a couple projects. There was Key and Nash. We had 4 affordable dwelling units in that. I think 2000 Clarendon as well. Those are kind of anomalies, I think. 90% of what gets built is apartments. A lot of that has to do with large capital and how investment capital, what they want to invest in. Do they want to invest in something that's going to give a constant return on their investment, or something that's a one-time, you're done and you got to move on? And given the amount of effort that goes into getting site plan built in that, I think people are, that it's the hold, you know. So there's also issues with the regulatory environment regarding liability insurance for latent defects. So developers are hesitant to build condominiums because they're on the hook for, you know, they may, you know, hand over a building and as far as they know, it's perfect. There's nothing wrong with it, but something comes up 2-3 years later and they're on the hook for making it right and compensating the owners and all that. And so that has a huge impact on the condo development industry. It's not a bad law. I mean, certainly you can see the consumer protection aspect of that. You buy something, you want to be sure that it's well built and doesn't have defects. But it has this negative impact of really chilling the condominium development. So it's why we don't see them. And most of the condominiums that we have in the county came from conversions. There are some that were, you know, built as condos, but and what's the number of condos we have? What, you got 14,000, almost 15,000 elevators and 11.5 garden. You know, most of those really came from existing apartment stock. That when the laws changed, and I believe it was the late 60s to more or less enable that to happen. And I'm not sure how much the fair housing law might have had an impact on that as well. I think it probably did. There's some research that we have way back in the archives, dust off, looking at Arlington conversion. So how that impacted various folks, but interesting question. But what I did intend to show you was some rent trends and where we are right now. So the rent trends, and again, you can find this going to the county website, plug in housing dashboard, and it gets you to that main page, which has all the reports on the one side and the main dashboard here. But the rental housing, this is updated quarterly. Basically, we started doing this in, I think, 2019 or 2020, really after the Amazon announcement, trying to really keep tabs on how that's impacting rent in the community. And for this quarter, and even last quarter, we saw some year-over-year declines in rent. And again, as was pointed out, this allows you to look countywide or by one of our planning corridors, because there's vastly different results where you look at. So if you look at Richmond Highway, you see that rents are, you know, not as,
They're more stable.
they're more, yeah. You look at Roslyn Ballston, you know, interesting, you know, that see rents going down year over year. This is the average asking rent. It doesn't mean if you're an apartment that the landlord's coming to you saying, hey, your rent's going down. Probably not. But the asking rent, you know, it's kind of the measure that we use in looking at that. And you know, vacancy rates, we're seeing the vacancy rates kind of rise throughout the county. Currently at 6.5% for the county as a whole. 5.6. 5 is generally the area where you want to be in. Below 5, it's a tight market. Above 5, your market's it's weakening. And obviously there's been a lot of economic upheaval in the DC region. So it's natural that we would see some repercussions of that in the housing market. And so in this again, the different colors are different planning quarters in the county, and this looks at rents by bedroom because that's how people consume it. They don't consume an average apartment because an average apartment in Columbia Pike is a different, maybe it's 2.1 bedrooms, and an average apartment in Roslyn, Boston might be 1.5 bedrooms. So you're not looking at the same thing if you're not. You think you're looking at the same thing, but you're not. Again, you can see that tailing off, and it's normal for rents to decrease in the third and fourth quarters, and then rise in the first and second quarters. But the year over year, if you go from the fourth quarter 2024 to 2025, we're seeing declines in the rents, which it is what it is, folks. That can be good news or bad news. Looking at the region, how we compare to our peers, tried to match metro lines with the colors here, with orange being Arlington, blue being DC, green being Prince George's, red Montgomery County, yellow Alexandria, and Fairfax. And we're looking just at the inner beltway components of these jurisdictions, because that's really, Fairfax extends quite a bit, so does Montgomery, and really we're looking at the comparable part. And we're seeing, with the exception of Prince George, declines in rents. And there was an article today in CoStar, which is where we get our data from, a real estate data firm, that basically the inner areas, inner jurisdictions, and inner neighborhoods in the DC area are seeing rent decreases year over year, and the outer areas are seeing rent increases. So the market's kind of segmenting down.
That question, you've seen CoStar. I'm familiar with that. Once you guys get the average of, for example, I see it does say Columbia Pike, Arlington, all this other areas. How do you guys can see the affordability between putting all A, Class B, and C buildings all in the medium, when if, let's say, if someone that's looking for something more affordable, like if they jump to this page, I mean, a B, C class, they're not asking $36 as the average for a 3-bedroom apartment, right? So I think that.
No, I my preference on this, but it would make it more difficult for a viewer, would be to kind of have a box and whiskers kind of chart, because the average shows you one data point, but there's rents below that. There's rents above that. And of course, the class apartment.
Because that plays a big role, because I feel like if affordability is something that we want to keep in Arlington, and you're looking at Columbia Pike Corridor or some of these places, and you're putting them all together, and I'm seeing a 2-bedroom apartment for $3,000, I'm not staying here. So it's kind of like.
Yeah. Well, I don't think this is a place where most people go to shop for apartments.
Oh yeah,
apartments.com and look. So we could have a lot more data, but we try to be concise with what we show, so it doesn't overwhelm. But yes, there's obviously a range of apartments, and class has a lot to do with that. I'll share one more thing with you. Find the window.
And Russell, while you're bringing that up, you said that the trend is that the outer core, outside the beltway, the rent is increasing, and that's because of migration, I guess, out there. Is that a symptom of or consequence of COVID, and that trend of just fleeing the urban core?
I'm not sure if that's a continuation of it. It's the rents are lower out there, and so even though they're increasing, they're still lower than they are in the urban core. So is it people looking for better value for the trade-offs that are involved in living in one area or another? Obviously, every consumer makes their own decisions based on a host of factors and the trade-offs they're willing to make. So again, these aren't on the on the dashboard, but these are from CoStar as well. So this is, I generally shy away from the average market asking rent for regardless of unit size, but I thought it useful in this, just showing that trajectory that, over the last 20 years, the only time we've seen a decrease in year-over-year rents was COVID. And so that we're seeing a decrease right now it's a little bit of a cause for concern, what's going on? There's been a lot going on. Ask any economist. But when we segment this by Class A, Class B, and Class C, what we're seeing is that really the where the rents are falling is in the Class A market. So it's that the newly constructed or built within the last 20 years, highly amenitized buildings, where we're not seeing the increase in rents that we would expect to see, and we're seeing rather anemic growth, if you will, in the Class B and Class C. They're not falling, but they're rising at a lower than inflation rate, which was 2.4%, I think, in November, which was the last date that we had data for that. So it's just something to keep an eye on, and there's a number of things on the table and in play regarding state legislation and so forth. But I think the apartment sector is they're not in a strong position right now. So just FYI for all of us, it's like, we'll keep on posting data quarterly and trying to make some sense out of it and see where we're heading. CoStar also has forecast data. There's a number of things that they input into that. I think they tend to be overly optimistic oftentimes in their forecasting, but they do have forecasting out for the next few quarters of continued decline in rents, for asking rents for Arlington and other jurisdictions. Yeah.
I guess I'm related to that is potential other economic factors. Does CoStar also collect data and security deposits and seeing if there's a decrease of rent, but then you're increasing security deposits because of the volatile?
Yeah, I don't believe they do, or I haven't seen that data.
I was just curious if there's a correlation.
Yeah,
or is it just
they also show, we focus on asking rents here. They also do have on effective rents because there's lots of concessions sometimes that particularly in the Class A market, where you get 1 month free when you sign up or whatever. So that they factor that into the effective rent, but we look at just the asking rent.
Any other questions for Russell?
Not me. It's very interesting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I guess that just they did a quick Google search. At least this one says CoStar does collect security deposit information, so it might be a possibility. It's from its CoStar Real Estate Manager software, so it is possible.
Yeah, it might be a different.
It's like a different platform. Different platform.
Okay, let me stop sharing.
Yeah, I was just curious. Devil's advocate of me. Okay, well, thank you, Russell.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
So moving on, next is friend trackers.
That was
that we just thought. Okay, good.
Yeah, it's kind of like all rolled into one, but yeah.
Okay, so we're now on to our 6th agenda item, which is subcommittee planning. So thank you, Russell. Have a good night. So part of our work plan is to create a subcommittee focused on updating the potential human rights ordinance that's currently out in the county to take into consideration all the concerns we've had over the past 2 years or so. We've heard from residents bring up retaliation and whatnot, or the allegations of retaliation, and just to focus on that, since that within our purview is that ordinance, and we do co-own it with the Human Rights Commission and the Housing. But similar to last year's cadence, my goal is to hopefully complete that in 6 months, so you can at least have a product that county board can either approve in October or in sometime in Q4, or recommend further county staff investigation and provide more evidence regarding what changes need to be adopted to the ordinance. But any comments on that subcommittee creation or its scope, what it should focus on?
I guess it's a question is where to get that information. I mean, you know, we don't get as much public comment, that much public comment here. And I know that, you know, Hector's getting some reports, but where are we going to get the data? Because it's very, as a landlord to read that, it's very disturbing that actually happens. And I'd love to personally know where it is and understand it better.
So we're talking about like landlord retaliation or any type of thing like that we deal with. So we do have a system that we log every call, email, we track all of that. I will have to play around in there to see, or possibly go in there and kind of like see if we can pull out keywords, see what's in the notes for it. But that information may be able to come from there, but also the Office of Human Rights may be able to provide probably not in-depth information, but maybe like, oh, we dealt with, you know, 24 cases this year or something like that. I know just from the public comment that we've had since I've been here, there's maybe been 4 people that have talked about retaliation from their landlords that I can think of off the top of my head. And then of course, there's always the people that have been retaliated against and don't say anything about it that we know nothing about.
Right.
So we can try to pull some information just from the call logs and the sheets that we have, but I'm sure the Office of Human Rights would have more information about that, and they may not be able to get specifics. They probably can't give a number of what they.
And then let's say you use the number, you know, 24. Of that 24, after an investigation was conducted, how many were retaliation or how many were simply the landlord enforcing the lease and the VRLTA?
Absolutely.
Correct.
Yeah,
Right?
Yeah.
Because you know, we don't always use the right words. None of us do, right? Yeah. They increased my rent because I complained about my backed up toilet. Well, you know, we increased the, you know, 480 other apartments over the year as well, right?
Yes.
We weren't retaliating, we're just doing what we do as landlords. And then, you know, my next sort of secondary question is then what, you know, to drill down, is it a property management company that has a record of retaliation? And then within that, is it, you know, is it Kristen Clegg at, you know, Ditmar, you know, just, it's just so disturbing that it's so important, but we need a lot of information to know, is it really worth our time almost to take it to that next level? I think you have to have a lot of back data.
Another thing I was going to say too is I remember when we had the home with VA, when she did her presentation, she talked a lot about the landlord retaliation and the information that they keep at that particular agency. I don't remember what her slides consisted of, or she had data or stats for it, but I do remember her talking about the retaliation and they dealt with, you know, fair housing, some of those types of issues, but I do remember retaliation being one of the slides. I can look back in the notes and also in her PowerPoint and see what information was there, you know, if it was something that was, like you said, a cause for concern. She said it was 150 throughout the state or whatever the number was.
Thank you.
And I also don't want us to do this work in a vacuum. I do want to partner with the Housing Commission and Human Rights Commission. So we're not just doing our part and then say, here's a recommendation, and everyone's like, where did you come up with?
Right, right.
And then also, I don't want to presume that we're going to have a recommendation. It could be that the process is working fine and our recommendation is that it just stays as is.
Right, because we had 24, we drilled it down to 8, and then we drilled it down to 3, and it was 3 random resident managers at 3 random property companies who, you know, either were retaliating, had a bad day, or something. You know,
There's other factors.
yeah, right, exactly. They were human on Tuesday.
Okay, well, yeah, I definitely follow the same cadence we did last year. We'll ask our partners and the other commissions to send a member. Kara, I'll work with you on how frequent
Okay.
they can be. But hopefully my goal is like last year, have something tangible, whether it's we don't do anything or just a minor tweak by June and conclude that work similar to what we did. But thank you, Kristen, for raising those are very good questions and allows me to work with Kara to do more data searching before that first meeting.
Yeah, I mean, I can see what we can pull, you know, in a lot of, I think that when a resident calls and they say, I think my landlord's retaliating against me, and it may be, like you said, they won't come fix my clogged toilet, or, you know, whatever the situation is, or I think they're retaliating. It may not be retaliation, it may be other things, but figuring that part out is a little bit harder than just taking a call and logging.
Right.
Yeah, I think one of the things too for this subcommittee, it should also have a copy of the current ordinance. So that can be reviewed as well. So at least they can bring themselves up to like a level setting of what the process is.
I can't commit to a subcommittee. I've got a lot.
Yeah.
However, if there's a time that you're gonna get together, like a sort of a one-off, I'd be happy to participate. Help gather data or review it or something.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm happy to join.
Okay.
Me too.
Okay. Sounds good.
I think I'm on the same boat with her. She knows I'm regional manager now, and
Well, congratulations.
Thank you. And it's gonna be crazy years. But any questions, I'm willing to help out with a lot of things. But right now, I can't get to a subcommittee.
Awesome. Well, thank you. We'll definitely take all that, and then Kara, I guess I'll connect with you at some point next week.
We'll figure it out.
Yes.
We'll figure it out.
Okay, next thing is announcements from staff and member. So anything from you, Hector?
I don't have anything, I know that you did ask about an update for like the eviction, like an evictions update, and I did talk to someone over in DHS about it. They basically said that the need is always there for eviction. I remember when Heather did her presentation, she talked about how they're releasing funds at the beginning of every month. They're out of funds by day 2. So, it's a tough spot to be in. They did say that they were gonna try to be more strategic about the way that they distribute the money and help residents, but, that was all that she had. I didn't get any numbers from her, but if we wanna have another update in, March, I can.
I think to piggyback on that, I think it would be good to have an update on that. I actually I think that's one of the parts of my job that I that I don't like is having to go to court for a judgment for evictions. And I think the county is being proactive because, I haven't seen it in 14 years. They have a table right at the side of the courtroom with like resources about evictions. And I think that's also a good method because in the past, it's kind of like, hey, we have all these funds, call us when you get the late notice. I think now, seeing a lot of people like losing jobs or having to deal with a lot of things that are happening, across the bridge and in the area, having the county there for resources that a lot of people don't know about. Even though as landlords, we have to put that information on our 5-day notices that, hey, call this number X, Y, and Z. People don't do that. Unfortunately, people don't do that. And I was very happy to see that last week. And I was there for, just 2 cases and some other properties in Arlington. I was very surprised. They had like 12, 13 cases for the same day. It's morally, it felt bad because this is our community, but I was very happy to see the county with a table there with the resources. The first time I see it, and I don't. It's been 14 years. First time I see it, I was very happy to see it.
Yeah, I can reach out to Heather,
Yeah,
see in March if she has something.
and the reason why I'm also asking for these numbers is because we have to give our budget recommendation, which will be, we'll see how much time we have next meeting since we're gonna have the Barcroft. And so that we can make an informed decision because I know last year, for this fiscal year, they cut eviction protection funds. And it seems like they're constantly running out by day 2 or 3.
Yeah, so I went to the landlord presentation, after Lucy Young came. I've taken my team to those, and the one in the fall, right before the winter one, they said, that they didn't have any funds and that they cut the eviction prevention to $2,000 only. And I believe that's per year. So like a lot of rents nowadays, like if you're paying 2,500 or whatever and you can't pay it and you're getting evicted, like unfortunately they can't help it.
Yeah, they're changing some of, not changing, but they used to help out with security deposits. Now they're doing security deposit help for housing choice voucher holders. So, before it used to be, if you needed help with security deposit, just go to the county. They are being strategic about what they can and can't. So maybe like I said, in March, I can get another update on evictions and talk to Heather and maybe get more numbers, to see exactly where that trend is. Out to her.
Yeah, I think you need to talk to her and just give us numbers. And hopefully I'll look out for the budget, but hopefully it gets published, like the draft one next month. And hopefully do a deep dive and provide a summary like I did last year.
I have a comment on it as well. I would love to know of the people who get those funds, that $2,000 or whatever the county can give them. How many of those people end up getting evicted anyway at a later date? When we are in that 5-day notice and we have communication with a lot of our residents, and mostly in our B properties, our A properties, it's a different issue typically. They tell us from the get-go, like, we're not getting better. Our second source of income is gone. I'm supporting a health issue. I'm a gig driver and I don't have a car anymore. And so the $2,000 buys them a month, but it doesn't buy them housing. And because they want payment plans, or they want us to renew their lease with a concession so that, they get that extra time. So I would love if we get any additional data to find out if they have that information. I gave you $2,000 in March, but
You're up for eviction in September because you couldn't sustain or maintain. Yeah.
Right. Because it 1 month for most from the people we talk to, it's not enough. And I don't want to ever say it's a waste of resources to give anybody another month of their home while they try to figure it out. But when you talk about being strategic, I'm not sure if giving each one of us $2,000 does anything, as opposed to, okay, well, you're a family with a disabled person and you have 3 kids and, blah, 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 blah. Does that person, is there a point system that?
Yeah, it's just like giving them a stay, even though, you're just delaying the inevitable.
Yeah, I guess even with that, one of the things that when I went to the last meeting, they talked about how funds by day 2 or 3, it's gone. What about the people that don't even have the resources for a computer or, someone to take them to the county to have this information, or the language barrier, and by the time they actually have someone that can help them out with that?
I guess Kara, related to like person just stated too, do we collect like their debt burden? Like if they're 4,000 in the hole and so we give them 2,000?
Yeah, they won't, if you can't, I'll double check with Heather about it. If you can't say you can provide up to your 6,000 and give you 3, you can't find out of the 3, they're not gonna help you. There's no purpose in doing that.
Right.
I know that they do probably have a separate, some pot of money for like the people that are disabled and aging, or people that are, over a certain age, but I don't know about the point system. I think it is if you apply and you qualify, if they'll help.
It's a first come, first
It's like,
served.
but it's like a first come, first served. But I think the thing is that there's not enough funds. So
Right.
you give it 3,000 and you have, I don't know how much it is a month, 100,000, that's not going to a lot of families. When you have people that have applied probably in December for January funds and people, are coming in January, it's just never ending. And as she did stress that they were going to be more strategic with how they're distributing funds. There was
Yeah, I think it'd be
something
great to
else.
hear about it again.
Yeah, there was something that someone said that jogged my memory of when we were talking and I can't remember it. That's okay. Yeah, if I remember it, you're right.
Well, yeah, thank you for that. And as you know, next month is the bar cross, so I'm sure we may or may not have a packed room. We'll see, but I guess we'll.
That'll be in person.
Yes, that will be in person.
Bar crowd. It'll probably be 2 months.
Yeah, usually with the second one, there's not a lot of individuals that show. It's usually the first one, but we'll see how this one plays out since it is a much larger property. Okay. Thank you. I think it looks good. I'll give you those notes that you said you wanted for the relocation plan, but are there any comments on the annual report?
Do you want to set a date?
I think-
Sarah, is your name spelled right or did?
So mine's not, I and, Kara.
Oh my goodness, I didn't.
Okay. I don't even usually make a mention of it, but since you.
Yeah, okay, the names, oh my goodness, okay.
I thought that my name's usually good, because usually they flip the E and the I of mine.
I never.
Same here. I
Yes.
think this is one of the first places that you guys have gotten Adrian right. They usually put like
Yes.
NAE or some other type of Adrian.
But it looks good. I mean, self-explanatory.
Yeah, a lot of it is just information from notes that kind of, copied and pasted with a couple extra words added in. But the one part for the relocation subcommittee recommendations, that was the one part that I couldn't find notes on. So.
Yeah, I'll put, that was from my April memo that I think I sent to Venezia. I'll look it up and I'll send it over to you. Well, if you have any edits, feel free to send that to her by Friday. So I'm sure this is probably due to counting at some, but I haven't heard. Okay. Oh, hearing anything else, the agenda is completed. Is there a motion?
So moved to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn has been moved. Is it seconded?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
I.
All those opposed? This concludes our meeting for January. See you all in February.
Thank you for bringing Russell.
No, that was.
That was great.